every time we have failed the system, usually by lacking faith in it, usually by saying we have to change and do something else. If you want an example of the power of this system, the government told us a short time ago that the new poverty level in the United States was $5,500 of earnings. At $5,500 and down, you are living in poverty in America. $5,500 is 8 times as high as the average standard of living for the rest of the world. A Supreme Court justice has said, "The time has come, indeed is long overdue, for the wisdom, ingenuity, and resources of American business to be marshaled against those who would destroy it." What specifically should be done? The first essential for the businessman is to confront the problem as a primary responsibility of corporate management. It's been said that history is the patter of silken slippers descending the stairs and the thunder of hobnailed boots coming up. Back through the years, we have seen people fleeing the thunder of those boots to seek refuge in this land, and now too many of them, like the lady from Cuba, have seen signs, the signs that were ignored in their homeland before the end came, signs appearing here. They wonder if they'll have to flee again, but they know there is no place to run to. Will we, before it is too late, use the vitality and the magic of the marketplace to save this way of life? Or will we one day face our children and our children's children when they ask us where we were and what we were doing on the day that freedom was lost? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Reagan. The governor has agreed to answer questions for a few minutes. You'll notice that there are 2 microphones downstairs and another above. And the idea of that is not only so that the governor can hear the question, but also the audience. So he would entertain some questions for a few minutes. Governor, if you just field them yourself.
Maybe I should quit while I was ahead, yes.
Okay, Governor Reagan, how do you feel about the Carter-backed instant voter plan, and what effects do you feel will have on the American democratic process?
The Carter, which plan?
The instant voter registration.
Oh, the instant voter registration plan. Well, I'm against it. This idea that was proposed that the showing of a Social Security card at the polls on Election Day would be enough identification to prevent fraud. He must not have noticed that woman in Chicago recently who was indicted for fraud, convicted of fraud. She had 50 Social Security cards and was collecting welfare under 127 different names. Social Security itself has admitted that they have no way of telling how many people in the country have more than one Social Security card, but they estimate that it is in the millions. And this, I just say, is an indication of how difficult it is. We have difficulty now with the present system against voter fraud. But to suggest that registration, the difficulty of registration, is what's keeping people from participating in the democratic process, I think ignores reality. The truth of the matter is, how do they explain then the people who are already registered who don't go to the polls? I just came from Denver. Last night's paper in Denver had the results of their elections all over the state, local elections and so forth. And I saw city after city electing mayors and city councilmen, and as low as 9% of the registered voters going to the polls. I don't think we should ever take a chance with that. Maybe if we made it a little more difficult, people would think there was something worthwhile in it and go vote. I understand, and settled against it. They voted against it. Yeah. All right. Which shows the people are smarter than politicians.
Governor Reagan, I agree completely with your analysis of the loss of freedom that has occurred in the United States, having been born in England and presently living in Canada, which is going the same route that England has gone now. Recently, when Rhodes Boyson, a member of Parliament from England, was here, he stated that after a certain point, the loss of freedom, of loss of freedom in a country, it becomes a point when the fight for it becomes, you might say, like as he put it, a bloody civil war, where we've lost so much that to return is almost, as he put it, to be a civil war. Have we reached that point?
Now, I missed some of the first part there. You got to get right into that microphone here. You were talking about rioting, and have we reached the point of...
Well, have we reached the point where we've lost so much freedom that you might say the journey back to where this country started from is now not quite impossible, but at a point where it's going to be a vicious, almost civil war, as Rhodes Boyson put it in his analysis?
No, have we reached the point where it would take almost civil war of violence to regain the freedoms that we've lost in this country? No, I don't believe it at all, and I can give a couple of indications. A couple of years ago, some of you maybe bought a new car, and it had, under the law passed by Congress, the interbelt seat lock device. And you went through the irritation of finding you couldn't back the car out of the garage unless you strapped yourself in. You couldn't put the groceries on the front seat or the car wouldn't start. It only took Congress about 2 weekends home to find out how... And remember, these were just the people that had bought new cars, to find out how mad they were, and Congress voted it out. And there's been a more recent one. There wasn't a person in this world would have bet that the House of Representatives would have voted against the common situs picketing bill. As a matter of fact, I can tell you, because I was helping a little bit in the strategy for the Senate. The Senate had felt it was such a lost cause that their only hope to defeat it was through a filibuster, and they were trying to line up 40 Senate votes who would preserve, not allow cloture to end the filibuster. And suddenly the House of Representatives voted against common situs. Well, a week later I was in Washington, and I said, what happened? And the answer was very simple. They said, we heard from the folks back home. No, believe me, it is, we have the power, but it's as simple as this. A poll revealed recently that only 46% of the people in this country can name their United States congressman. And of the 46% who can name him, 85% can't tell you a single thing about him other than his name. They don't know how he votes or what he represents or what his philosophy is. Again, it's we who have failed the system provided for us of running government. The result is politicians run us. And it can all be changed if we will begin using the power we have as voters. And I think that the pendulum is swinging. I know that corporate America, which I mentioned critically in my remarks, one corporation has funded a school at the University of Southern California in the business college there. They're holding seminars throughout the country on a program of communication for corporations, for example, employers to communicate with their employees, with their stockholders, even in their advertising, that it's now part of their battle, all in the defense of free enterprise. So, no, I'm not discouraged, but we just got to move fast, and again, as I say, we got to start talking to each other.
Reagan, I'm from Adrian College. That's a sister institution of higher learning in
Could
Adrian.
you get right into the mic there?
Governor Reagan, I'm from Adrian College, and that's a sister institution of higher learning in Adrian, Michigan. And I'm going to put you in a hypothetical situation, whereas I'm making you an honorary professor. And in your class, you have a slow learner named Jimmy Carter, and I'd like to know what his midterm grade is so far.
Long on style and short on substance.
Governor, this is a nonpartisan meeting, I know, so I won't tell you that I'm the chairman of one of the two major parties in the neighboring county.
I think Senator Roche sounds fine, but President Reagan sounds even better.
You wouldn't send a president up there alone without a lot of fellows like this to help him, would you?
Heavens, no. I come from an area that there are a lot of farmers, and I would, for their benefit, like to know what your view is of the proposed agricultural strike in December.
Well, I can understand the impatience and the anger that has led to that, the idea of a strike. We think of it sometimes in taxpayer strikes, in others at the time when they seem to be ignored. I think the farmer today's problem is that he has been caught more than anyone in the cost-price squeeze. As the cost of operation has gone up, and of everything he buys and everything he has to pay for, from seed to fertilizer to machinery and so forth, and to labor, and yet with a great wave at the political level to favor the consumer, he stands caught in the middle. And there is no question that today, as you must be well aware, farmers, for example, are selling corn in the Corn Belt for a little more than half of what it actually costs to raise. Much the same situation prevails in the wheat market. I would hope that we could find a solution, and while I'm sure that under the circumstances today the only recourse has to be, at least temporarily, government for this, I would hope it would not be, as the Carter administration has suggested, a return to the farm program of some time ago of subsidy and regulation, crop limitation and so forth. I would hope it would be a market solution, but first to get over the crisis before we find great tragedy to a great many individuals in that industry, and then a free and open worldwide market. It's just impossible to recognize how we can have, in a hungry world, the most productive, the only country almost in the world that can do more than feed itself but has so much to export, that we can have the problems we're having. I thought a year or two ago on the famous wheat thing, where the government, after urging them to plant all the wheat and then change the rules, was totally against any fairness. And I believe there's a solution. I worry that it's going to go the other way, try a backward step toward what we got rid of. I don't know whether you know this, but down in Iowa, there are bumper stickers appearing that say, "We want our butts back." That's B-U-T-Z. Someone else with a...
Governor, I believe there's time for one more question.
Oh, dear. All right.
I have a couple of things. One of them is that we're nationally driving 55 miles an hour in the U.S. Britain is 70. In Germany, I get passed by people going 125 miles an hour, and they don't even produce any oil or gas. Well, that's something for us just to think about. My question really is this. We know what our terrible balance of payments is. Ours is a small company. We export a lot of things. Right now, if you know what 921P is, do you know that regulation, that form? It has to do with the boycott. Israeli and the Arab boycott, or any boycott.
Yeah.
We really don't know what to do. We sell both to the Arabs and the Israelis, okay?
Yeah.
We got a letter of credit. The letter of credit says it must not be shipped in Israeli bottom if it's going to Egypt. I don't find any fault with that, but the government apparently does. We don't know what to do about it. But I turn right around, I've got the same situation in both countries.
Well, I have to say again here, I think that we were on our way to having an influence in the Middle East in which the United States had displaced the Soviet Union influence in the Arab countries. That was under a previous administration, whatever anyone may want to think about it. And both sides were ready to recognize the United States as able to sit at a table with them and help them solve the very complex problems. I think we've gone a ways backward from that. We brought Russia back into the Middle East problem after taking 3 years to get them out. And I happen to believe that there's enough right on both sides